Chapter 53. Serafina had a very long dream. In the dream, she saw many men with fierce faces chasing her. No matter how much she ran, she could not shake them off. Her clothes were torn to shreds, those men's hands were like snakes and centipedes grabbing her tightly. No matter how much she struggled and screamed, no one came to save her. She didn't know how long later, while she was in a daze, it seemed like someone was kissing her. The feeling was very familiar. She suddenly felt strangely safe. Then a bitter liquid filled her mouth, flowing down her throat. After that, she lost consciousness again. But from then on, she was no longer troubled by nightmares. When she woke up, she found herself covered with a fragrant vest, nestled in a warm chest, faintly smelling of the green forest. She crawled out of the vest, raised her head to look up and met Harrison's quiet eyes looking at her worriedly. Right now, they are sitting in the back seat of the car, outside in the raging storm. The wind and rain outside were getting heavier. His chest was both warm and safe, like her only sheltered harbor in this world. She moved, obediently leaning in to hug him. Awake? He lowered his head, pressed his cheek against her forehead, frowned and sighed, still feverish. Thanks to his reminder, she now felt her body surrounded by an unusually high temperature, her cheeks burning like an air balloon about to burst. Maybe you caught a cold last night. She spoke only to realize her voice was hoarse. He frowned, hugging her tighter. I originally intended to let you rest, but... He had a feeling that staying on this small island tonight was very dangerous. He had to leave immediately. He didn't want to worry her, so he immediately changed the subject. Having a nightmare? She rubbed her eyes that were still blurry from sleep, and let out a tired sound. She leaned against his chest. This warm feeling was so vague. She couldn't help but remember the scene in the casino. She avoided his hand, and took care of everything by herself. She closed her eyes, and after a while, she was able to calm her emotions, and smiled. I suddenly remembered something. Huh? He saw that her spirit seemed to be better, and encouraged her to continue. She looked relaxed. When I was on the plane to Macau, I heard Andrew teasing you, saying that you were so good at everything but gambling that you didn't know anything. He leisurely said, that's right. That's why I asked Andrew to beat Logan up to show off. The defeat at Andrew's hands would definitely leave Logan with psychological pressure. I was very worried at that time. She finished speaking, unconsciously holding his right hand, which arm seemed to have just taken a walk around the gates of hell. That's right. What card did you draw? He absent-mindedly replied. I forgot, just some random cards. You're really good. She snuggled into her vest, seeing you so confident. I thought you really drew the supreme 5 black aces of spades. I heard that the person who draws those 5 cards is the son of the god of luck. He smiled. I've never had any luck before, and finally added coldly, regardless of whether it's meeting things or meeting people. Her heart ached, feeling extremely uncomfortable. He relaxed his eyes, looking at her stunned appearance and tired expression, suddenly feeling a strange pain. He was greedy, hoping that she could give herself to him. However, with her cautious, insecure, and stubborn personality, if he forced her, it would only make her more uneasy, and one day, she would run away, disappearing without a trace from his life. The wind and rain pounded against the car door. He instinctively hugged her tighter, absent-minded for half a moment, and finally said, about today, I'm sorry. She didn't know how to explain to him. Hearing him say that, she raised her head in confusion. Why? He pressed his face against her hot forehead and whispered, you have your freedom. I shouldn't decide to handle everything for you. It's just that there are some things that I don't even dare to think about. I was so stunned that I didn't pay attention to your thoughts. He laughed bitterly and tightened his arms. You're so arrogant. If you had to ask a man to step in for you, you would feel resentful and angry, right? You must feel that I look down on you. I really didn't mean that. Before he could say the next sentence, she grabbed his hand tightly and shook her head. No, it's me who's at fault. She looked up at him, her clear eyes blurred by fever. It's me who hasn't considered your feelings. I'm only used to being alone, not used to being protected. But if we're together, I should trust you more. Things like this, I should probably face them with you. She curled up into his chest again, weakly closed her eyes, took a few breaths before smiling, but now I just discovered, the feeling of being protected by someone else is really great. He was momentarily stunned, an unusually warm feeling was surging inside him. He suddenly wanted to kiss her, unable to control himself, he leaned over and bit her lips. There was still a bitter taste of medicine on those lips, but it was the most wonderful taste to him. She was held tightly by him, unable to move, her whole body was surrounded by his passionate breath, she felt dizzy, unable to think of anything. Up until now, his kisses had always been very lingering, never as rough and intense as today. His lips seemed to want to touch the bottom of her heart, making her whole body tremble unconsciously, her body became hotter and hotter, unable to breathe normally. He put in so much effort, so crazy that she felt like she was about to be sucked in by him. She only felt dizzy as if the sky and earth were tilting, but the minty scent when their lips and tongues touched made her linger and forget the way back. Although her whole body was exhausted, she still instinctively hugged his neck, responding enthusiastically. Like that for who knows how long, until the car suddenly stopped, the two separated. She lost her balance, almost fell off the seat, a second later she fell back into his warm arms, being held safely in his arms. She lost all her strength again, clinging to his chest, even breathing was difficult. The car stopped, the sound of the wind and rain outside grew louder. The sound of car horns sounded loudly, far away were the sounds of people arguing because of impatience. She didn't pay attention, nor did she care, only felt quiet and safe, softly leaning against his chest. He lowered his head to glance at her, only to see her cheeks flushed, half from the high fever, half from the kiss just now. He couldn't help but blame himself, she hadn't fully recovered yet, he shouldn't have lost control like that. Hearing her breathing still heavy, he became even more worried, he had to quickly take her to the hospital. But why did the car stop? The bodyguard in the car next to him got out of the car, knocked on his car window. He put his vest on her, then pressed the button to lower the car window a bit. The wind blew into the car through the gap, a few cold raindrops also flew in, the cold air seeped into her body, she reflexively curled up into his arms, moving deeper into his shirt. She pressed her ear to his chest, only hearing his steady, strong heartbeat. It was so peaceful that it made people want to fall asleep. Third brother, Ben's voice was very low, because of the storm, the bridge out of the island has been blocked. Harrison's face darkened, what time is it? 11 o'clock, 1 hour earlier than the bridge blockade time announced. Ben was silent for a long time before continuing to speak. I heard that Mason Clark and his gang want to purge the gang today, you see. Where are Miles and Jack? Those two people took the documents and went by canoe as you told them, they should have left Macau by now, they should be back in Beijing soon. Ben reported, secretly praising Harrison's vigilance. As soon as he left the casino he sent someone to take the documents and go ahead. Right now, although the fierce internal fighting within Mason's gang had nothing to do with them, this strange atmosphere really made people feel uncomfortable. Before the storm came, the rain poured down heavily, thunder and lightning flashed in the apocalyptic black sky. The bridge was completely blocked by cars, and before one could turn around, another car had already rushed in from behind. The long bridge over the sea had turned into a noisy parking lot, unable to move forward or backward. Serafina raised her head with difficulty and looked outside. What's wrong? Harrison held her head and whispered, traffic jam, it will clear up soon, sleep well. She closed her eyes tiredly and fell asleep obediently, but the breath on his neck was getting hotter and hotter. He frowned, and pressed his cheek against her forehead again, which seemed even hotter than before. He glanced out the window, because of the heavy rain, visibility was less than half a meter. Damn the weather, he cursed under his breath, took out some fever-reducing medicine and put it in her mouth, softly coaxing, take some medicine, when the rain stops I'll take you to the hospital. But to tell the truth, he knew that this rain would not stop soon, but would rain even harder. She listened and opened her mouth, finished the medicine, but her cheeks were still red, and she snuggled into his chest, breathing heavily. The person in his arms was burning hot, as if she didn't want him to worry, so she kept quiet, occasionally mumbling a very small sound when she was very upset. How could he not know that she was suffering from an illness? He felt so heartbroken that he could not bear it for her. He took a loose men's windbreaker from the trunk behind him and wrapped her tightly. She lowered her head and asked dejectedly, "What are you doing?" "Take you to the hospital." His expression was grave. After he finished speaking, he picked her up, and just as he was about to open the car door, he heard a few gunshots. He stopped, hugged her tightly, and focused all his attention on his ears. After the sound of the rain and wind, came the continuous sound of gunshots, and they were getting closer and closer. The people outside were screaming in panic, not knowing who had shouted loudly, "The mafia is killing each other." Immediately, almost everyone abandoned the car and ran. The crowd of people frantically poured out of the car, running in all directions. The gaps between the cars were packed with people running away. Some even climbed onto the roofs of the cars to run, but the people running on the roofs of the cars were no different from free-falling targets. Harrison placed his hand on the car door, hesitating. The man in black behind the wheel turned his head to wait for orders. All the bodyguards in the other cars also got out and stood around the front of the car. He pulled the windbreaker in his arms, covering Serafina's face as red as an apple, and said in a low voice, "Abandon the car." After speaking, he pushed the car door open, carrying her into the rain and wind. In the moment from the warm cabin into the cold night rain, she shivered, but on the contrary, she became a little more alert. The smell of the storm at night mixed with the salty taste of the sea breeze made her feel relaxed. The burning heat that made her dizzy seemed to have lessened somewhat. The windbreaker was quite tight, not a single drop of rain stuck to her body. She tried her best to inhale the hysterical breaths, looking at the determined half of his face in the dark rain. As soon as she got out of the car, the rain had already soaked him. His neat short hair was also stuck into many small curls. She wiggled slightly, wanting to get out, but he lowered his head to look at her, the raindrops running down his face like a river. The sky was flickering with lightning, highlighting the gloom in his already dark eyes. He didn't say anything, just tightened his arms, stopping her movements. He looked at her for a long time, saw the rain falling on her face, then lowered his head and used his mouth to bite the collar of the windbreaker to pull it up so the rain and wind wouldn't touch her anymore. She originally wanted to say, "It's okay, let me go downstairs by myself," but she knew it was a waste of effort. She definitely couldn't move him, so she gave up, obediently letting him wrap her in his arms. He carried her on the bridge, which gradually became deserted. Thunder and lightning rumbled overhead, heavy rain lashing at both of them. He walked very fast. She couldn't see the situation outside, but she knew that with him here, she would definitely be safe. But the gunshots behind her got closer and closer, and his men seemed to have started shooting in that direction. Only now did she realize that he had not only carried her through wind, rain, and thunder, but also through a hail of bombs and bullets. Although he had bodyguards by his side, it was dangerous for him to carry her like that, without any weapons in his hands. She panicked, struggling to get off. He held her tighter, walking quickly forward while leaning over to whisper in her ear. "Don't be afraid, I won't let anything happen to you." It wasn't that she was afraid of herself getting into trouble. Just as she was about to speak, she heard a few gunshots ring out close by, and a second later, he loosened his grip on her. She immediately lost her balance, almost falling freely, but he still didn't let her go, but suddenly crouched down on the ground, hugging her and rolling under a car. She instantly fell into the icy cold rain. The sudden hot and cold came at the same time, making her shiver. He was still holding her, his eyes filled with guilt. Her hair was messy. She tried to smile, whispering, "Consider it as a fever cure." He looked at her red and pale face, feeling very sorry but did not say anything. He lifted her with one hand, and with the other he tried to crawl under another car. She pushed his hand away, meaning that she was fine, then struggled to crawl forward following him. She glanced over. Under the car on both sides were bodyguards following Harrison, surrounded by a curtain of pouring rain. Under the car was considered a peaceful and cramped space. Serafina was already soaked. Unable to stop her trembling, he reached out to pull her over, holding her in his arms. Finding some warmth, she looked up at him, but he was concentrating on staring straight ahead, holding a sniper rifle in his hand. That is, the sniper rifle, a heavy and bulky sniper rifle, used to take down targets from a very long distance. She couldn't even remember when he took out the gun. She followed his gaze and saw that someone seemed to be squatting behind the rain curtain. Her heart was as tense as a string. He seemed to feel her looking, immediately focused on that dark figure. One hand covered her eyes, the other hand forcefully fired. She only heard the sound of gunfire ringing in her ears and the miserable screams from afar. Before she could even tremble, he had already hugged her and rolled out from under the car. The sound of gunfire revealed their position. They had to move immediately. Her nerves were extremely tense, forgetting about her fever. With his protection, she tried to bend down and run to the side. The continuous sound of gunfire followed the two of them. He covered her and ran to the end of the bridge, then crouched down next to a car, taking out his soaked windbreaker to keep the rain from running into her eyes. He was also drenched, his hair stuck to his face. She quietly looked at him, his handsome face as if carved out stood out in the white lightning. But right now, in the eyes of this always indifferent man, there was confusion, even fear. She knew, he was afraid that something bad would happen to her. She shivered from the cold, trying to smile. "Don't worry, I'm fine." He laughed, touched her face, his eyes gentle and determined. Suddenly, he took out his tie, covered her eyes, and tied it behind her neck. She fell into darkness. She just had time to be stunned. He kissed her lips. Between the two lips there was still a layer of icy rain and cold sea wind, but why was it so warm and soft? Her heart seemed to stop beating. In a blink of an eye she forgot that she was still in the bloody rain and wind. But in just a moment, he let go of her, leaned close to her ear and gently said, "After we return, let's make our relationship public. Be my girlfriend, okay?" She reached out to touch his face. Although it was soaked with cold rain, it was still as steady as usual. She smiled brightly. "Okay." He tilted his head, rubbed her smooth cheek. "Wait for me a moment." He whispered in her ear and stood up abruptly. "Sister, wait for me a moment." The last words Theodore said to her in his previous life seemed to penetrate through time and space, suddenly entering her mind. She had a bad feeling, suddenly wanted to grab him, but only grabbed the wind that rushed past. She was very obedient, did not take off the tie on her eyes, only focused all her attention on her two ears. She heard him stepping on the rain, jumping on the roof of the car. The sound of leather shoes stepping on the iron roof of the car rumbled, then the sound of gunshots rang out everywhere. Her heart jumped into her throat. She curled up tightly, her whole body shivered, not because of the cold but because of fear. "It's okay, Harrison will be okay." But after such a long time, the rain beat on her thin, fragile shoulders. The sound of wind, rain, and gunshots rang out endlessly. When would it stop? When would he come back? Not knowing how long she had been waiting, suddenly someone grabbed her shoulder. She was afraid and reflexively shrank back. Immediately after, the tie was removed, and she was hugged into that familiar chest again. Her eyes were filled with tears. She hugged him tightly, and cried out, "You can't leave me alone in the future." "Okay." He answered briefly, hugging her tightly. Just now, although he knew that leaving her alone would be safer, but every moment he couldn't see her, he was restless, afraid that something would happen to her. When he finished and turned back, seeing her curled up and trembling like an abandoned puppy, he felt like someone was pinching his heart, wanting to slap himself. He hugged her tightly and said, "It's okay, we'll leave here immediately, okay?" He quickly brought her to the lifeboat dock next to the bridge. There was still a small boat left. The bodyguards had prepared everything. All she needed to do was sit on it and she could leave. He carried her onto the boat, let Ben sit on it, and told everyone to lower the boat. She was stunned, grabbed his hand. "I want to go with you." He curled his lips slightly, his eyes filled with unspeakable affection. "I still have things to take care of. Ben will take care of you." The target of those people was him. If he followed her to the sea, this boat would sink into the sea. His eyes were filled with longing. His hand was about to remove her hand, but she still held on to him tightly and refused to let go, stubborn like a child, almost about to cry. "You just said you wouldn't leave me alone." Before she could finish speaking, several more gunshots rang out. Ben and a few bodyguards immediately opened fire in retaliation. Harrison also quickly turned around and fired back. He fired 3 shots, killing 3 men, and was about to shoot again when he heard several loud gunshots mixed with the creaking of machinery. He saw her scream in horror and helplessness. "Harrison!" His heart suddenly felt heavy. and he turned around and rushed towards the small boat. But the rope that tied the boat had been shot through, the boat swayed, the hurricane blew her black hair and red dress, like a flower blooming in front of him. Serafina on the boat frantically reached out to him. His heart was twisted, he used all his strength to rush to grab her, but the rope had snapped, he didn't have time to grab it, he could only watch her, the whole person and the boat fell into the Black Sea.